Hey, this is Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS here with another top 10. Haven't done a top 10 in a while, and this time we're going to be looking at the top 10 episodes of Stargate SG1 Season 1, back when there was enough episodes in a season to make a top 10 worthwhile. And but before I get into that, I want to talk about today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is the Parsec Fan Awards being put on by the Red 5 Network. This will be taking place on November 27th. This is on subjects of best sci-fi movie, best new sci-fi fantasy concept, best Star Wars book or comic, all that kind of nerdy stuff voted on by you, the listeners of our podcasts. And they have asked me to do a few segments, did a few skits, and got to do a presentation of an award there. So was happy to do that, but that will be coming out November 27th. So not this Saturday, but next Saturday. And one of those things that we're really looking forward to this coming out. So now, with that out of the way, we're going to get into the Stargate Season 1 top 10 episodes. Now, originally I had stated that I was going to do my top 10 seasons 1 through 5, and then seasons 6 through 10, and then Atlantis. And maybe then Universe. And then I realized that I compiled a list of candidates just going through season 1 and realized I had 11 that I thought were top 10 contenders. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over each season of Stargate, do all the different shows, do each season, do a top 10, and then come back after I get to the 5th season done. Then I will do a top 10 of my top 10s from those, and then go on and so forth until I label it down to a top 10 of all Stargate. And so looking forward to that. Definitely we want to let Amazon Prime know that we want some more Brad Wright Stargate, and so I'm going to be looking forward to seeing a lot of Stargate content on here, doing some podcast highlights, but just wanted to throw that out there. So this is kind of the first step of that. So my number 10 is episode 7, The Knox. The Knox was a fun episode. They were really interesting species, and we're going to see in some of these later entries that they were part of the 4 great races. At first, they look so simplistic. They look like they're vulnerable, and our crew are trying to save them from this enemy, the Gould, who, going to wipe them out. But realistically, their technology has advanced to a point where they're going back to living simple, because computers and all that, they've gotten away from that. They can heal people, even people who have been shot and killed. They can bring them back to life. Their technology is that advanced. They can make their cities look invisible, and they've just moved past war. And so this is kind of a really interesting concept. I like the actors that played the Knox, and how they called the SG1 team small children. I was disappointed we didn't get to really see more done with the Knox later on. Especially, I think, when it comes to my fanfics, I would like to see the Knox and the Ori clash. But that's just me. Okay, episode 9, continuing, number 9, I should say. It's episode 16, Enigma. This is continuing on with interesting alien species that were introduced in this, and this is the Tolan. Yet another species that is far beyond Earth's technology. They can phase in and out of things and move through solid walls. They were on a planet where a volcano, the fumes from that had knocked them out before they made it to the gate. The SG team goes through, sees them there, pulls them through. No, their medical technology is more advanced. They knew a rescue party was going to come and get them, and now they're really worried because they had a sister world that they had shared technology with, and they didn't have a Stargate, so they shared that from that, and this made it so that they were afraid of that world had destroyed itself, so they have a lot of rules, kind of like Star Trek's Prime Directive. They're kind of like the Federate, like they have rules. They can't share technology because Earth might self-destroy itself. And realistically, you look at the Earth and you look at the Stargate, that's one of the things that's always unique in Stargate is that's a serious thing. Like the U.S. is having petty wars on Earth while they're fighting this galactic enemy. But all the petty conflicts and all that, like lower levels of government, don't know that all this is going on. So they're wrapped up in the battles over borders on the planet. And sure enough, as well-meaning as the SG team is, they're in the military, the higher-ups get it, and it's like higher-ups that make the call that we got to do bad things that we wouldn't be proud of. And the SG team has to help the Tolan escape. So, really good setup there. A lot of Nareem and his character development with Carter was really interesting. Now, my number 8 is the pilot, the episode 1, Children of the Gods. And first off, I'm going to say I didn't know whether to consider this a movie. Because I'm excluding movies from these lists, and Cold, my secret bonus number 11 that just barely didn't. I almost swapped it out into this list and put this out on the technicality that it's a movie because it's been remade into a movie. And so it's what is the best version of Children of God? Well, one of the things is when this first came out, this was on a network that was not regular television. It was not rated. So the original version had nudity. That really felt very out of place in Stargate. Didn't like that. However, I am on the side of the fence that I really like Sam's speech to Jack. And I really dislike how it's been edited. Because they give Jack's responses, but they took out Sam's speech of, and just because my sexual organs are on the inside instead of the outside doesn't mean. And now it just has her say something, and then Jack just looks at her and says, no, I like women. It's scientists I don't like. It feels very out of place now. And we're going to see in another episode I bring up, they make callback jokes to that. So I feel it should be there. However, in the new movie version, they've upgraded some of the special effects, and they've added additional scenes. More Tilk stuff, I believe some Braytac in there, which originally wasn't there. Those character interactions and those building up, kind of explaining Tilk's motivation, was not there at the beginning. But that's going to be a solid number 8. There's a lot of things in the pilot that the show does differently. And, of course, I got that truck going by. It's me, no editing. But that's one of those things where I look at it and I go, that is a definite cool thing to see happening. But it's got a few things that doesn't hold up under later Stargate canon. Okay, now we've got my number 7, and that's episode 21, Within the Serpent's Grasp. Season 1 ended on a huge high note, which to me seemed very early for the show. It definitely seemed like they wanted to go somewhere, and they wanted to make sure the show, but here Apophis is attacking Earth. And the SG1 team, they're ordered to stand down, but they know this attack is coming, and there's a bunch of bureaucracy going, so they step through the Stargate. They go on this suicide mission to save Earth, and they it cliff ends with, oh, we're actually on the ship that's about to attack Earth. Dun dun dun. End of the season. Excellent beginning. Not necessarily the first time, but one of the early Daniel Jackson dies and comes back, which became a reoccurring trope. This wasn't the first time, but it was one of the first. Number 6 is going to be episode 14, Singularity. And this is one where they find a girl and they bring it back. And Sam Carter and Dr. Fraser both having a bond with this girl, especially Sam Carter in this episode. And it comes to find out that a bomb has been placed in her. It was how the Goa'uld were trying to take care of the SGC. They know they'd have pity on the surviving girl, so they put a bomb that was activated, basically a countdown timer when she went through the Stargate. And they do a thing where it's based on the proximity of the Stargate, and so they go down into this bomb shelter, and Sam just has this gut that it wasn't going to go off. But she doesn't know that for sure. And she's like, I'm not going to let this little girl die alone. No, she is, in all logical sense, she's the smartest person about the Stargate. She's invaluable to mankind's survival. And yet, she's created this bond with this little girl that she's like, I am not leaving this girl alone. It gave Sam's character so much depth. So much depth. And the whole Cassandra being kind of like her adoptive daughter, but then it really became, she became more like the aunt. Because she's a super scientist, she's this super, military warrior job. Like, she doesn't have time for that. So Dr. Fraser becomes the mom. But she becomes like the fun aunt that has a loving relationship there with him. Now, number 5, I'm going to go with episode 17. And that's Solitudes. And this one is a fun one. They're going through the wormhole. And the Stargate gets attacked, and it kind of bumps them to a different gate. And they don't know where they are, but they're in like this frozen ice crevice. And they think the SGC is looking at all these other Stargates all over the place. They can't find them. They're sending teams everywhere. They're about giving up hope. Sam and Jack are trying to survive, and this really is the beginning of the Sam-Jack relationship. I really like the bonding they do here. It is platonic, but it is really good bonding, making it so that these characters care about each other. Because up until this, it is Jack and Daniel's show, and Carter is just walking exposition member of the team. Teal'c is kind of like the insider lore, and Jack is kind of getting this like buddy cop feel with Teal'c, like, oh yeah, I'm a big muscly guy. I'm a career military guy myself. He kind of budding up to muscles, but Carter and Jack needed this to really put their characters together. And of course, the wonderful joke when Carter says, well, I think I can try to MacGyver something together. And Jack is like, what did you say? And, giving the thing that Richard Dean Anderson played MacGyver. He is MacGyver. Make that distinction there. And no one else will ever truly be MacGyver. That's Richard Dean Anderson. And, but then the SGC finally figures out that they're actually on Earth. There's another gate in the Arctic on Earth. And so that has a lot of lore for, like, reveals out in season 8. Tired. Sorry, no editing. I'm on like 4 hours of sleep. But I'm excited to talk Stargate. So, really good episode. Number 4 is episode 9, Thor's Hammer. Pretty much any time when you talk about the 4 great races, I'm excited. That's a good thing. And this is our first introduction to the Asgard. And, you're going out and it's like this hologram of what you'd think Thor would look like. Big Norse guy. And they pass all the tests. And then they get revealed that it's this, oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing the wrong one. I'm thinking of Thor's chariot. No, this is Thor's hammer. This is a really good one where they go through the Stargate and they see the Vikings there, and then they all laugh, and Teal'c and Jack are transported. And where are they transported to? But into a cave where another Gould has been transported. And I guess all Gould and Jaffa transported by Thor's hammer. And this is really good. We get introduced to the Unas. And so this is a Unas Gould. And this was truly a scary, frightful thing. I would like to see this make a return. Another Unas Gould. Because, boy, were they powerful. They, he killed that thing multiple times. It kept coming. And, hearing Teal'c talk about it like it's a legend was really cool. And this sets up things like the Fifth Race and Thor's chariot, which I started to talk about because I got overexcited about it. But that would actually probably be higher on this list. But Thor's hammer, just that little hint of what the Asgard are, really gets you excited. Okay. Number 3 on my list, episode 18, Tin Man. This is where the SGC wakes up on another planet. They go home, and then things start to happen. They realize that they're actually robot bodies now. And what they don't know is that their consciousness hasn't just been transferred. Their real bodies are on this other planet. They're just in stasis. He had created these extra bodies because he needed more robot people to maintain the facilities. The reveal of that, the moment when they grab their arm and rip their skin off to reveal that it's a robot inside, was just amazing. And we see these characters show up again in a later season, but was a fun idea. Now, what was also interesting is Teal'c. He's got the symbiote in his pouch. And the fact that he gave that consciousness and Teal'c's mind's consciousness both control over the robot body, which made that Teal'c start to act evil. And he just said, he's different. But yes, this is such a great and fun sci-fi episode that I've got to go. Come try ya! Love that episode. Now my number 2 is episode 19. But There for the Grace of God. This is bringing in the multiverse. Yes, we have the multiverse. Not only do we have traveled all the planets, but now we got travel to different multiverses. All still in the first season of Stargate. So much, when you look at like the Star Trek shows, and like most of them, they say, well, the first 3 seasons aren't that good, but then after that they get really good. The Next Generation wasn't that bad, but there were some lower, and there was some writing with the characters wasn't there yet. Voyager and Deep Space Nine had real rough starts, but Stargate, man, this first season, so much groundwork, stuff that affects, I would say the first 8 seasons, like the groundwork is laid there in season 1 for all of that. It wasn't until they kind of got to the Ori arc that it really differentiated itself from what we'd received here in this first season. But yes, there's this mirror. They're going and they're thing there, and Daniel touches it, and he's transported to an almost identical world, but there are some changes. Like, for instance, Sam never joined the military. She just joined NASA. And so as such, she is completely just a civilian scientist. She's not on the team. Daniel Jackson is dead in this universe. So they never got his help. They were late to opening the Stargate. They never had an SGC program, really. And Apophis is coming. And once again, I mentioned the callback. There's a moment where Carter's getting really upset, and she's, you know, Jack's girlfriend, fiance, I can't remember. And so, once again, they're toying with that, but she's not being listened to. And she's kind of like walking down the hallway, and she's like, and just because my sexual organs are on the outside, or on the inside instead of the outside. And she's like, oh, what a dork. Who would say such a thing? Really showing that, like, that kind of need to be listened to and put on that was part of her military side. So I thought that was really cool. Look at that. But just bringing in the concept of multiverse, getting to show us what could happen. This makes, within the Serpent's grasp, which was mentioned earlier, all the better, because we've seen the Ghoul doing that. And what it does is this episode alone sets the stakes for the rest of the show. They show that it's not like if the Ghoul get here, then it's going to be like this drawn-out battle with the Ghoul here. No, we go out on our like Black Ops missions to defeat them out there. But if they ever come here, like, it's game over. They've won. We're wiped out just like that. We can do small insurgent strikes, but like in an actual military combat, like our tanks, our planes, they're nothing. They're nothing to the Ghoul. Our nukes, nothing. So then that brings us to our number one. And our number one is The Torment of Tantalus, my favorite episode of all Stargate. This will probably be number one when I do the all Stargate one. I just love this episode. One, this introduces the 4 great races. And so we'll later come out to find out that they are the Knox, the Asgard, the Ancients, and the Furlings. And we always get teased with the Furlings. We never get shown the Furlings. But, and we got shown a little bit of the Knox, but the Asgard and the Ancients are pivotal parts of Stargate lore. And really, everything that Stargate revolves around is contained in this episode. In this episode, we get callback to the movie of you know, we have Langley and Ernest and all that stuff going on there. It just really just a lot of callback and reminds you that this is part of the universe of the movie. The other thing it does is it associates, it talks about the Gould, and the Gould is a problem, and then these 4 big races, which, like I said, especially the Asgard and the Ancients, are what the whole show is about. The Ancients, the gate builders themselves. And then the Asgard, who are going to introduce us to the replicators, and they're going to be, you know, Earth's greatest ally. All that stuff. And then they pack it into Daniel Jackson talking about meaning of life stuff. Like, he's my favorite character. And he's enthralled with the world. And we're getting to experience it through his eyes, and he's there, he wants to stay, and they're having to pull him away, and it's like, you're gonna die. What's the point of all the meaning in life if you're gonna die here? Like, come through and take what you can. Just great, amazing episode. And this is a non-action episode. Stargate is a very military show. There's a lot of gunfire, a lot of different things. It's a military sci-fi. This is pure sci-fi. And this, to me, is Stargate at its best. It's Stargate's heart and soul. And so, Torment of Tantalus, to me, is peak Stargate. So now my secret number 11 is Cold Lazarus. This is one where Jack goes through the Stargate with the team, and he touches this blue crystal, and it knocks him out, and it creates a body like him that goes through the Stargate. He's acting kind of funny. Why I like this is at the end, when he turns into Jack's son, he's trying to heal Jack's heart. And this is an episode that Richard Dean Anderson said they had to do an episode like this in the first season if he was going to take on this role, because he couldn't be Kurt Russell's ready to kill himself brooding soldier. And this does a lot to transition from Kurt Russell Jack O'Neill to Richard Dean Anderson Jack O'Neill. And I think if you've watched the show and you didn't like it, like, this is the episode you need to see to be able to accept this version of Jack. Especially when you get later on in the seasons when he just starts being Richard Dean Anderson. He stops being Jack. At a certain point, he's ready to be off the show, and he is just lots of comedy. But this is, I think, a really good turning point to see how he gets from point A to point B. And with that, that is my first one of these. I'm going to be going through all of them. I'm also going to be covering some of the podcast highlights of different Stargates. Of different podcasts that cover it. I'm going to have a podcast dedicated just to talking about Stargate lore and why I love Stargate. Just a lot of different videos. I'm going to try to have at least one video a week for like the next 2 or 3 months dedicated to Stargate. So with that, I bid you all adieu, and let me know what's your favorite episode from the Season 1 of Stargate SG1. And I'll catch you in the next video.